right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dental Hygiene Basics. My name is Dana. I'm your host. And today we are here with the amazing Kim McCrady. And we have so much to talk about. I'm like, I hope we can get it all in because we have so much to talk about. So, Kim, thank you for being here. I just want to start a little bit with your RDH origin story. How did you get to this point?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to, have some students or maybe even, recent graduates or seasoned hygienists listen in and just kind of hear what's out there. But my hygiene journey goes back many, many years. I was 18 when I started in dentistry, and I was back in the day where we did recall with rotary phones and 3x5 index cards from paper charts where we wrote down patients' names and had tick marks and we called them, for recall. But that's where my career started, was the recall girl for a dental practice in Salt Lake City, Utah, actually. Fast forward to, today, 35, 36 years later, I've had the privilege of seeing our profession from pretty much almost every angle. I was a dental assistant for a time. I've been a hygienist. I've been an office manager. Then I went into practice ownership with 3 dental partners and then co-founded a DSO that is led by dentists and hygienists. And so it's been interesting. It's been quite a journey from being that, hi, you're due for your cleaning, which I hate that word, but that's what we used back then. But hi, you're due for your hygiene visit, to having over 100 practices in 9 states and having the pleasure of supporting hygienists and just pouring into them, because there is so much out there in hygiene now. With DSOs around, there's just so many opportunities for us within the chair for coaching and being the very best we can be, to eventually someday maybe stepping out of the chair but still contributing to the industry we love.
Yeah, I know. I love your story. I was a recall girl too. Whenever I was
Yeah.
before I went to dental hygiene school, I did some recall, and we all have to start somewhere.
We
And
do.
getting your foot in the door, my dad always said, he's like, just tell them you'll you'll empty the trash and sweep the floors if they just let you come in and learn and soak up what all there is to offer. And
Yeah.
then you think about the progression of your career and what you've done from where you started, right? It all builds on top of it. And it's so incredible. I'm so excited to see all the amazing things you're doing and the support you give to hygienists. So I do want to talk a little bit about Signature Dental Partners
Sure.
because, I know what it is. I know one of your amazing, amazing employees, Joffrey, who does go out to schools and gives webinars and kind of helps with that transition. But what got SCP off the ground? Like, I'm thinking through the importance of hygiene and hygienists. I can see that you guys care very much about hygienists. You're a hygienist yourself. So how did that kind of process come to be?
Well, we were a small company called Signature Dental, and we were based in Arizona. And myself and my 3 dental partners had 5 practices at the time. For us, what we could see 10 or 12 years ago was consolidation was coming. And we were concerned that how is that going to impact, number one, our teams, because we're smart enough to know that a good dental practice is a result of a good team. Investing in the team is number one. And secondarily, we wanted to make sure patient quality, patient care standards were maintained, because when there are non-clinicians, and no shade on any non-clinicians, but they just don't know the inner workings of the office and the importance of some of the details of the way we care for patients. And as simple as, how much time does a hygienist really need to take care of his patient? Some patients it's shorter, some patients it's longer. And we've all been kind of put in this box of, well, you take an hour or 90 minutes, that's it.
Yeah.
What if it's more? What if it's less? But the long story short was, we could see what was coming, and we didn't want our teams and our patients, the public, to become subject to any kind of entity that wasn't well understood by clinicians. But the other thing that we saw was the transition. There were some difficulties for dentists who wanted to transition out of their dental careers, finding doctors who could come in and actually afford to buy their practice. That was the old transition. Doctor gets to a retirement point, new doctor comes out, buys the practice. With dental school being as expensive as it is, dental students were coming out of school with $500,000 of debt, a mortgage, car payments, kids, and just couldn't do the old transition. So we thought, well, how could we step in and help with that transition? How could we help a dentist who loves dentistry take those non-dental functions like HR, marketing, recruiting, those types of things off of their plate help even find them an associate where they could maybe do a 5 or 7 year transition so it's not disruptive to the team and to the patients. And so that's really where it was born from. We were just sitting around a break room in one of our practices talking about what that would look like. And so we started trying to acquire practices together. Very quickly, we learned we needed a lot of help. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of departments to market and HR and recruiting and all the things we just talked about. And so we spent some time, building that infrastructure. But here we are now with great partners who helped us along the way. Lot of stub toes along the way too. You learn more from your mistakes than you do the things right. I can testify to that. But yeah, so here we are now, doing our very best. We're far from perfect, but we're far from done, which is the saying we've said from time to time around Signature. Collaboration's our number one core value, and we just know we're stronger together. And so those lines of communication, we can't fix it if we don't know about it. So we try to stay really close with our hygienists and find out, hey, what do you need? How can we help? And provide as many solutions as we can.
Love that. Our main audience here are future or current dental hygiene students, right? People who are
Yeah,
ready to go on this process. And
so exciting.
yeah, it really is. I mean, I think about your career, my career. Obviously, we've both been very passionate and have gone on to do really fun things just with that dental hygiene degree. And we're going to talk a little bit about the skills that hygienists have that can stretch beyond the operatory so that our students can start thinking ahead. But at
Yes.
the same time, I also want to give kudos to you and what you guys have created because I know right now that there is a lot of negativity. These students are coming in and they're seeing hygienists like burnout, unhappy, saying, don't go work for a DSO. Like you said, they're going to put you in a box. And you guys were forward thinking enough to think, how do we start coming up with a plan that's going to be best for patient care, best for our employees, and make sure that this is the way it should move moving forward, right? And so I'm very excited that you're doing that. So kudos to y'all. Thank you very much for thinking about the team and the patients. But at the same time, you mentioned you would love to see a day where maybe this process could all be done with just dental hygienists on board, right?
Oh,
Like,
really? That'd be great.
love our doctors and we love our collaboration and we know that that always has to be there, but there is a time and a place for hygienists to be able to work independently, remotely, whatever that may look like. So tell me about your vision. How do you think hygienists have these transferable skills?
Areas. Sure, sure. And if you were to ask me when I graduated from hygiene school if I ever thought I'd be where I am now, 35 years later, I don't think I would have ever dreamt where I am. And as I continue to think about where this is going, there's so many opportunities, and there is a bit of negativity out there that about the profession. And I would say, don't listen to that. Don't listen to, if you are passionate about patient care, if you're in this profession for the right reason, there's always opportunities, always opportunities. And hygienists, if we're anything, we're particular, we're highly organized, we love processes, we're scientific and smart in being able to use data and information to diagnose or be suspicious of issues and then problem solve. And we do it all with such a great awareness of people and dealing with people in this people business. It's a tough conversation to have with a patient when you have to tell them they have a disease that they're going to lose their teeth if we don't do something about it. And it doesn't hurt, so they don't understand. But hygienists, our skill set is just so diverse and so unique. It's not just about scaling teeth. It's all of those things we talked about. And there's so many things now that are available to hygienists that weren't even, I'm going to say 20 years ago, where hygienists can move out of the operatory and move into, you know, operations support or marketing or even HR or dental recruiting. There's just so many things where you can still love our profession and our industry, that the foundation that you build being a clinician, it just sets you up for the next step. And thank heavens there are next steps now, because for a long time there wasn't. You kind of bumped the ceiling of, well, I've arrived. I'm the hygienist, unless I want to go to dental school. And if you'd want to go to dental school, wouldn't you have already gone? Like, I never had a desire to go to dental school. So I
Yeah,
like the
such a good
dentist side of it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is dental hygienists, whether they realize it or not, are very independent. They like to Not to say they can't work with others, because obviously we work with patients and we work with a team all the time, but we like to kind of manage things within our op, and we're very resourceful too. And I think that there are so many transferable skills that we have as hygienists that can lead you into growth in your career. And like you mentioned, I always mention to students whenever I'm doing a webinar, I'll tell them all the things I've done in my career. And I say, I don't do that to brag. I'm telling you that so that you know what's possible. And I really think right now, students who are graduating, they're at the highest amount, you know what I mean? Like compared to even when I graduated 10 years ago, there's so much more available to hygienists
Sure.
looking to try and learn new things. So I
For
love
sure.
that. And thank you for giving those opportunities to hygienists as well with Signature Dental Partners. We appreciate that.
One day we're going to have an all hygiene DSO out there.
Yes. That's what we're pushing for is autonomy within our profession to be able to do things like that. So I'm very excited. Well, with that, we're really here to talk about your amazing new book. And I want all the details. Like you said, this has been 20 years in the making. So I'm going to let you just share anything you want about your new book.
Uh, it's been about 20 years in the making. And, you know, over the years and this whole dental journey, the one thing that's always remained just a constant passion for me is prevention. But making oral care education relatable, fun, accessible to everybody, but especially kids. Now, I never worked in pedo. I don't think I could do pedo all day, but I loved when I did have a pedo patients in the practice. And anyone who's been chairside long enough knows, and the students might not get this yet, but you will. When you've been chairside long enough, you will come up with 1,000 different ways and analogies to educate a patient, to try to meet them where they are so you can take them where they need to go and they come willingly. That's the important part. And so, being able to creatively break down information, science into a way that anybody can understand has just always been super important to me. And so, one of the stories I used to tell in my operatory to kids to help them understand what was happening in their mouth, I had several parents say to me over my career, you need to put that in a book. Like even the parents, as they would listen to me explain what was going on to their children, like you could see the light bulbs going on in the parents' head too. Like it is, but you really can't say bacterial byproduct to a child, but you can say poop,
Yes, you can.
right? Like
Yeah.
they get that. And so that's where, Plaque Poop came from, was a story that I would tell the kids in my chair over and over again to help them understand why they needed to brush and floss and come to the dentist and the hygienist regularly. And so that's what gave rise to Plaque Poop. It did take me a while to actually get it in print because I am not an artist. I didn't know any artists. And so when I would take Plaque Poop on the road and present it at a school, I would just get stock pictures that kind of worked off of the internet, laminated them, would tell the kids the story in the schools, and it was funny. But my best friend's daughter, who is now 27 years old, was 7-ish at the time that I came up with this whole approach. And as she grew up over the years, she has turned into a very talented illustrator. She has a graphics company that she does a lot of sweatshirts and hats and fun things. And I just called her up and I sent her the manuscript and I said, Maddie, can you make this come to life for me? And she did. It took us about 2 years to figure out exactly what the characters were going to look like, but we finally got it done. So, really it was Maddie helping my book come to life. I had the manuscript forever, but it wasn't until she put the characters to it that it really came to life. So I'm very deeply grateful for her.
I'm so excited for you. And the book looks so cute. If you're watching us on YouTube or on socials right now, the illustrations are amazing. I can tell already. I haven't gotten a chance to get hands on with the book yet, but I'm excited to do that. And I work one day a week in public health. And so I'm going to take my copy with me because I
Oh,
work with the
good.
kids in the elementary school. So that's what I was going to ask. What
That's
age
great.
group is this book designed for?
Well, my granddaughter is 2, and
Okay.
I read it to her. So my hope is it's they're never too young to start. It's never too early. I think this could go from 2 to really on through teenage years, and even for some adults who are struggling to grasp the etaology of dental disease, it even works for them. So, but yeah, I could say you could start it at any age. Probably the sweet spot's going to be like 5 to, maybe 13 where they're still interested, but hopefully we can catch them young.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, okay, I've got a niece, I've got these kids that I'm always around. So I'm like, I'm gonna bring it with me. And I think they would love it because when I work in the elementary school, we're doing sealant. So we always have a row of
Yeah.
kids just waiting. And you're always
Yes.
like, that's a perfect opportunity to share something like that. So if anyone's listening, or if you're in dental hygiene school, you usually have to have at least one child patient to graduate dental hygiene school. So how amazing would it be if you had a book like this that you could use during your education portion?
No, and even for students, and you mentioned Joffrey earlier, and she does go into the, classrooms, for seniors who are about to graduate and really just talk to them about what real life is like. And I go to those from time to time. And I think one of the struggles that I still see and that I had when I first came out of school is I really struggled of how to create value. I really struggled in how to break things down. I would still catch myself using words that were too big that even grown-ups, adults don't understand. It just has to be broken down so simplistically for them. And like I said, they're going to go through thousands of iterations till you find what works for you. And you see those light bulbs go on every now and again with patients. That, one of the statistics that's still really staggering to me, even after all these years, that I'm going to read my papers so I get my statistics right, is dental decay still remains the number one chronic illness in children in the United States. It's more than asthma, obesity, allergies. Tooth decay is number one. And we're the preventists, right? So how is it that more than 52% of children will have a cavity before the age of 8? 1 in 5 children have decay right now that's untreated. Children from lower income families are twice as likely to have cavities and are twice as likely for those cavities to go untreated. Of course, what do we know about untreated dental disease? It just gets worse, more painful, and more expensive, right? It doesn't get better. And the CDC estimates that 34 million school hours are lost every year for children having to tend to their dental issues. So to me, we don't have a systemic issue. We don't have a treatment problem. We have an education problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I haven't even dug into the, details on adults and the frequency of dental disease in adults. Like we haven't touched on gingivitis and perio yet, like our favorite things, but just dental decay and kids, like that's really staggering to me that it still is the number one.
Yeah, I believe that. I don't remember. I read some study. Yeah, it was in, I think, like Switzerland. And basically, they decided they were going to provide dental care and education starting with children, right? And then kind of follow them. And they would essentially get free dental care until they were 18 years old. And what did they see? The major impacts of like how it improved the adult health, right? It ended up costing adults less in the long term. So
Yeah.
starting from when they're young, and like you said, in a way that they can understand, but who else is listening? And those are the ones who are really involved in making the dietary decisions. And, it's just a baby tooth. It can come out, those kind of like thought processes that, just kind of commonly misunderstood aspects of it. So I love that you were passionate enough to create something that was going to help that problem.
Yeah, so passionate about it because even when, as hygienists, we see disease, we see the consequences of the disease physically and financially every day. Like that's what we see every day. And as I said before, as the preventists in the building, we are working so hard as an industry to put ourselves out of business. It saddens me we haven't been successful yet to still see those statistics. So, yeah, as I continue to move through my career, I definitely want to make sure I'm part of this movement to help kids, let's get them early and let's save them pain and discomfort and money later on in life.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned we're not even touching yet in books on gingivitis and perio, but over half of the adult population in the US has periodontal disease. And, you mentioned we are supposed to be the ones who are in prevention. And I think we still have a ways to go to really show what we're possible of, but that really starts with the conversations that you're having with your patients and the education that you provide. Because really, what is going to be the best way to prevent something is if someone knows what causes it, right?
Right, and you have to know. And breaking it down for kids, I have to show you probably my favorite page. Let me show you my favorite page in the book. Maddie calls it The Last Supper, and I think that was the inspo for the picture. But it's so funny because here it is. It shows all of the teeth, all of the little plaque germs sitting there eating like what we eat right off of the teeth. So this is our Last Supper page.
I
And
love
and it is. Kids then get it. They can relate to, I have germs in my mouth. I'm taught I have germs in my mouth because I'm always told to cover my mouth when I cough. So they know that they have germs in their mouth. They know germs exist. We teach them that they eat, and then we teach them that they poop, and kids think that's funny. And, even for adults, if with perio, ask them to sniff their floss, and that's what's going on there.
I'm a little more upset that I didn't start telling patients that sooner. Like, sniff your floss if you haven't flossed in, a while. It really is. It blows their mind. I say, I'm sorry to tell you that's what your breath smells like. And then they're like, oh my, what?
So
Yeah. So
But yeah, I just want to empower, patients and parents and providers to start having, don't shy away from those conversations. Don't shy away from the opportunity to educate them when they're young. Really take that time and invest. You're going to give them a lifelong gift of health, and not just dental health, because as hygienists, we also know that dental disease is linked to so many systemic conditions now that the mouth is part of the body, contrary to the way insurance thinks about it. We insure the mouth differently, but it is part of your body. So the sooner we can intervene and empower them to take control by just simply understanding, it's all about the why.
yeah, I know.
Right.
And sometimes people ask, how do I get involved? How do I get out there and, maybe go into a school and educate? And you're like, I want to do it, but I'm not really sure. I can just see a vision where you're like, you don't need anything. You walk in, you say, I want to come in for 30 minutes. I want to read a book to your class. And you take a book like yours, Plaque Poop, and
Yeah.
everyone's going to understand, which I just think is incredible. So, where can people find Plaque Poop?
Oh, Plaque Poop is on Amazon, of course. What isn't? But you can find Plaque Poop on Amazon. Just Google Plaque Poop book. And you can also find it on Barnes and Noble. Of course, we are on Instagram, Plaque Poop. You could always, DM me if you want a copy. We can make sure you have the links to get one. There's paperback and hardback copies. But you're right. Like, just one book in front of 30 kids, you just never know what impact that's going to have. And I would encourage the students, like, I know you get to that end of the line and you don't want to spend another day in school, like you're so sick of it, but go give back to these kids. Walk into any elementary school in your neighborhood and just say, would a nurse's office or any second grade classroom, the teachers would be more than happy to have you give a presentation. I'm just happy that I'm not doing it anymore with, printed pictures, stock pictures off of the internet and my cheesy cue cards. But yeah, don't forget to give back to those little ones. You're giving them just a lifelong gift of health.
Yes, absolutely. I know that's one thing I say. Becoming a dental hygienist and gaining that education is a skill that nobody can take away from you. And then I really think one way to combat that burnout and, remain passionate is to remember why you did it in the first place and continue to give back. So I love that. Yeah, and it's very curious to consider, how we've ended up here when we've had so many advances in dentistry. And we think about the addition of fluoride and we saw how significantly that improved dental caries, but we still have this high rate of decay. So can we not keep up with like our terrible food choices? Is it, education, like lack of access? There's so many different things. And obviously our population is bigger too than it
Of
was then.
course.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
we always have to factor that in. But I think we should start considering that, what advances have we made and really what is and is not working? And that's really what our job is here for, is to take that time and teach people how to prevent it. So I love your book. I'm so excited for you and all of the amazing things you've done in your career. My last question I usually ask is, what advice would you give to someone maybe who's going on this journey, interested in becoming a dental hygienist? What would you tell them?
I think I would tell them what my husband told me when we started actually putting Black Poop into publication. And I think it's true with anything, whether it's hygiene or a book or whatever you're passionate about. Don't give up. Don't give up. Stay close to your dreams and be okay that you're going to have like ups and downs and lulls and things. And that's okay. Like, show yourself some grace, but don't give up. Don't give up on what you're passionate about. It will all come to be.
It will. I know. I heard something where it said, what's meant for you will never pass you by. And that doesn't mean it might not take time, right? You said you've been working on Plaque Poop for 20 years. And honestly, I feel like sometimes I need to hear that same motivation as well, because I have ideas and things I want to work on. And you think about the length of time it's going to take to do something. Like, right? You know what the end goal is. Like you want this book and you know what the end goal is. But sometimes we can get so caught up in the in between, the steps. I have to find an illustrator. And really what's motivating to me is you still took the next step. You're like, I've got these PDFs with stock photos, or even though you didn't have everything in your toolkit that you needed to create the book at the time, you didn't stop moving forward with what your goal was, right? And eventually you got to this beautiful, amazing book, but you were still moving forward the whole time, which is incredible. So.
Thank you. It didn't feel like that at times. It felt like life just kind of kept coming at you and kept putting things on the back burner. But yeah. Uh, but thank you. Yeah, that was a good reminder for me too.
Yeah, I know. We need to hear that
You are
sometime.
giving words of advice to me.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you and your story so much and everything you do for hygienists and patients as well. So I know everyone can find you at Plaque Poop. Is there anywhere else? You said you have a website?
I don't, it's still a step I have to do. Never give up. It's still a step I need to do. But yeah, probably the best place to catch me is, follow on Plaque Poop on Instagram. And we're just getting started with this. So I would just invite everybody, join the movement. Let's make dental disease number 2 on chronic childhood illnesses. Let's just dethrone ourselves from the number 1 seat here sometime soon.
I love that. It's always good to have a goal that you're working towards, but you don't want the goal to be too crazy, right? I'm like going from 1 to 2.
This is a good time to be number 2.
Yeah, I like that. Let's
No pun intended.
It matches the title. I love it. That's so funny. Yes, we want to be number 2. Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kim. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And to the students out there, good luck, guys. Best profession ever. I still can say that after 35 years and still growing strong. So
I love that. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Kim.
thanks.